Greetings. Michael Didier here. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you being here. We're going through Torah, continuing our adventure in Torah. Wow, we've seen so much in these. Wow, how long has it been since we started Genesis 1 again? It's been several months, hasn't it? This is our 24th class, so I guess we're close to about 6 months that we have been going through this, and we're only to Genesis 20. Ha! Boy, have we learned a lot, though, in that amount of time. I want to refresh your memory on where we left off last week. Remember, it's always about seeing the big picture. And in an attempt to help you understand how critical chapter 20 is, I want to go all the way back to chapter 17, the chapter that Yahovah comes to Abram when he is, actually he's Abraham at this point. When he is 99 years old. He's talking about making a covenant with Abram and his seed after him. Let's look at what it says. And Elohim said to Abram, as for you, as for thee, thou shalt keep my cutting. Remember, we were talking about the cutting. The covenant is a cutting. Thou and thy seed after thee throughout their generations. Thou and thy seed. It's about Abram and his seed. Abraham and his seed. He continues. He says, this is my covenant. Okay? Keep my covenant. Thou and thy descendants. But now he says, this is my cutting, my covenant, which you, now it went to plural, you, not thee, thou, you, all shall keep between me and all of you, and thy seed after thee. Abraham, remember this is a vision that he's having. He says, every male, there is no child there, among y'all shall be circumcised. Who's he talking to? When he's talking to descendants, he says every male. He's talking to men. He's always talking to men. We've got to understand this if we want to understand the big picture. You will not get a correct understanding if you think he's talking to ladies. Yahovah does not talk to ladies in the same way that he talks to men. He never gives them instructions. They are to obey their men. Let's drop down. Keep in mind, actually, I want to go, this is when he was told to circumcise himself. This is it. Circumcise yourself. All the males of your household, your son. And every male when they're 8 days old. He did it. This is a vision. Let's keep in mind. There was nobody talking to him. You know, I put a picture, him in front of his tent, his woman watching him. He's on his feet, bowed down to the ground, kind of a light coming on him. What does a vision look like? Carrie and I are watching a program here the last couple nights called, what is the name of it? The Messengers. Yes, talking about, I kind of wanted to see what's going on. What are people thinking about what's going to happen in these last days? You know, if we get an idea, we got to overcome some of the false images that they've got. And so by watching this, I can understand what are they thinking about the messengers, the horsemen. You know, they got them juxtaposed against each other. The horsemen are fighting the messengers. Well, I like the fact that the messengers are men, are people, in their case. They have women messengers. Well, that's not going to happen. Okay, but they've got the messengers fighting the horsemen. They're at conflict with each other. Think they're trying to preserve the world. Oh my gosh, there's so many false images. It's just incredible. But they got lady messengers. There's no lady messenger. There ain't no lady messengers. No. So where was I? Yahovah is talking to Abram. He is getting a vision, and he acted on the vision. Can you imagine? Circumcise yourself. He's 99 years old. Your son and all the men of your household. That's big stuff. And then, 3 days later, what happens? He has somebody come to him that he recognizes from a distance. He's sitting at his door in the heat of the day, in his pain of his flesh. It's sudden Yasher. That's how I tied 17 to 18. And all of a sudden, look, Marty, here comes Shem. Somebody he recognizes. I think it was Shem and Eber and one other. We might get to it today, but there was a guy, one of the sons of Eber, who died. I got a hunch that was who the guy was. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We don't really need to identify the messengers. We just need to know who these messengers were. They were men. I'll get to that in a minute. Let's continue with what we're doing here. So they're going to tell him the very same thing. What he just heard in his vision, now it's going to be confirmed for him 3 days later on the Moed. They are coming to him on the Moed, the time of life. And they're going to tell him that Sarah is going to have a son on the Moed. Is there anything too hard for Yahovah? At the appointed time, I will return to you. Okay? How's he coming to him? He's coming to him in his shalakim, his messengers. I know it's really hard to understand. We read things like this, and Yahovah said, shall I hide from Abraham what I'm doing? See, we read that, and it doesn't make sense to us because now we're trying to make that Yeshua, and we got all kinds of bad ideas. But when we understand that the shalakim, the men who are sent, have the ability to speak for Yahovah, then it begins to make all kinds of sense. So here it is. It's confirmed that at the appointed time next year, 12 months to the day, we're going to have a male child come to you, a spiritually born son. In a sense, he's a spiritual son. Why? Because he's the son of his old age. He's going to be 100. She's going to be 90 when she has Isaac. Well, so then we had the Sodom and Gomorrah episodes. And look at this. Same exact thing that happened with Abram. He spotted these men coming. He recognized them, bowed down to the ground to them, called them Adonai, my Adonai. He's speaking to one man in particular. I think he was talking to Shem, the leader of the men. Well, now here it is. And the two messengers came to Sodom in the evening. Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. And Lot saw them. He rose to meet them, and he bowed himself to the face, with his face toward the ground. Do you think that happens to everybody that he greets in the city? You know what? I'm here to tell you that isn't going to happen. That is not going to happen. He's not bowing down his face to the ground to every traveler that comes into the city. He says, and he said, "Hear now, Adonai," not Adonim, Adonai. He's speaking to one man in particular. You know what? Carissa came up with an interesting question yesterday. I told you I'd get it in here, Carissa. She asked me, how come Hannah, even though she was married, what was the name of his son? I said it this morning, or her husband. I said it this morning. I can't think who it is. She could probably tell me. Anyway, though she was married, she called Eli Adonai. And she was asking me, how come she's calling Eli Adonai when she's actually married to another man who is her master? And then she mentioned Abigail. Remember, Abigail called David Adonai. David was the anointed king of Israel at that point. And Nabal was a jerk. But again, she's calling David Adonai. Why? Was he her master? Elkanah. Yeah, Carissa, I knew you'd get that. Yeah, Elkanah. That's her husband's name. Was David her master? What is the answer to this? It took me a while to come up with the answer, but I realized it has to do with bone of his bone and flesh of his flesh. The master of the master is the master of the master's servant. Do you understand what I'm saying? Bone of his bone, flesh of his flesh. If he would call Eli master, she calls Eli master. If he calls David master, or should call David master, he probably wouldn't. He was a wicked man, Belial, son of Belial. That's what Nabal was. Worthless. Wicked. Probably wouldn't have called him Adonai, but he should have, and she calls him Adonai because he should call him Adonai. Does that help you, Carissa? I hope it does. This is what's going on. Now, a single woman. Single woman. What would a single woman do? I think a single woman would call practically everybody, every man, Adonai. Ooh, boy, they don't like that, I bet. But especially a righteous man. Lot recognized this man as someone who has spiritual authority over him. That's what we're talking about. A priest, remember, a priest is representing Yahovah. Of course you're going to call the priest Adonai. The king of Israel. You're going to call the king of Israel Adonai. But it's spiritual, isn't it? I guess in the sense David is a physical king. And even the priest, well, that's spiritual. He's got his position as Yahovah's representative. Remember, if you give something to the priest, you're giving it to Yahovah. Interesting. Well, let's move on. They made unleavened bread when he came to his house. The men of Sodom, not the ladies of Sodom, came, surrounded the house. All the people from every quarter. The people are men. We see it in chapter 17. They calls them, please, my brethren, not my sisterin. He didn't say, please, everybody. Please, nefeshim. Is there a nefeshim? I don't know if there's a nefeshim or not. But we're talking, usually when they talk about nefesh, we're talking about men and women. But he didn't say that. he said, brethren, have to be a form of a key. Again, it's about the men committing the sins. It's not about ladies committing sin. Ladies really can't commit sin. The sin that ladies commit is not being covered. You've got to get covered, ladies. I can't tell you how important that is. We all have to conform our lives to Jehovah's created purpose. Look what he says. He says, we will destroy this place. This is the messengers saying, we're going to destroy this place. He didn't say Jehovah's going to destroy this place. He says, we're going to destroy this place. Why? Because the messengers throw the first stones. In this case, they throw the only stones, don't they? Did Moses throw some stones as a messenger, a sent one of Jehovah on Egypt? Yeah, he did. There was a lot of things that Moses, we'll see it when we get there. We're weeks away from it, months away from it, really. But we're going to see that there's going to be things that Moses does, plagues that he brings on the world that Jehovah didn't tell him to do. Some he did, but about half of them he didn't. He did on his own. Well, you know what? That reminds me of what we're going to see if we can trust anything that comes from the New Testament. Specifically, I'm talking about Revelation. But if we've got two witnesses, and I think there is somebody coming that is going to feed Israel for 3.5 years. Remember, Israel is going to be the called out ones that have a pillar of fire in each one of their separate locations throughout the world. But there's going to be somebody, I think, who's going to direct them, lead them, kind of keep them in one purpose. And it may be somebody like Shem and Eber, men who have known Jehovah's ways. You know, we got men right now that they don't know crud about what's going on in the world. They have no clue what's going on even in the word that they supposedly teach. They're still talking about the children of Israel. Not about the children of Israel, it's about Israel's seed. They're still treating men like women and women like men. They are still running state corporations, telling people to obey the law of the land. Is Jehovah going to use a man like that to lead people in righteousness? Folks, it isn't going to happen. That will not happen. He will not use men like that. He's not going to use a man who thinks that a man who's married that's sleeping with another woman is committing adultery. If he thinks that's adultery, he's mistaken. Because a man can take another woman. Okay, there's things that we have to understand. And these men, probably two of them, but I'm guessing it's going to be one in particular with a Tonto person with him. Possibly. Not being derogatory at all. He's a mature man as well. But there's going to be one who's going to be the leader of the two. Like Shem was the leader of Eber. You follow what I'm saying? Somebody's got to have the head position. But I expect there's going to be somebody like that in the future, sent by Jehovah, who's going to bring down plagues, darkness, seals. What do we have? Seals, trumpets, and plagues. If we can trust what's going on in Revelation. Some of it I think we can. We'll see. You know, there's a lot in Revelation that has foundation in the Torah and in the prophets, especially the prophets. Well, then now finally we're going, well, actually we had some other things. We talked about Lot fleeing to Zor, Zor chasing him out, and really going down to, he went up to the mountains finally. Oh, and there was another spot here, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Here's this big story about Sodom and Gomorrah, and now here's two verses about Abraham. Look at this. This is verse 27. And Abraham went early in the morning to a place where he stood before Jehovah. Had stood the day before. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, toward the land of the plain. And he saw, and behold, the smoke of the land which went up like the smoke of a furnace. That's all it says. Then we go back to, well, I guess it says it. And it came to pass that Elohim destroyed the cities of the plain, and Elohim remembered Abraham. And, well, yeah, it's, one is what Abraham's doing, and the other one is what Abraham, well, it's 3 verses. But here's my point. Why is this even in here? He sees something happening. I got a hunch, we're going to see it in the next chapter, that there is going to be gases after effect. What do you call that? After effect. That's a stupid thing to say. Something that's happening as a result of the devastation that's happening in the valley is going to move up the mountain towards Abraham. We're going to see Abraham's going to leave. Let's keep that in mind. So, he went to Zor. Let me go to the small city, he told the messengers, and they let him go. Remember, they have the ability to make a decision for Yehovah. Let him go. I think after he left, Yehovah may have destroyed the city anyway. Probably because they let him go. Had they not let him go, maybe they would have not been destroyed. But he got chased out of the city, didn't he? He went to the cave. Remember, it was the cave of Adullam. Adullam, the cave of Adullam. We saw what that cave looked like last week. And then finally, the daughters of Lot decided that they needed a child from their father. First they said, what is going on here? Oh, okay, here it is up here. No man on the earth to come to us. Our father is old, and there's no man on the earth to come to us. And then they said in the next thing that we want to preserve our father, the lineage of our father. So first they're concerned about no man, but then they're talking about preserving the lineage of our father. It doesn't make sense. There's something going on here that just doesn't quite jive in my mind. So anyway, they had 2 children. One, the firstborn, had a son, called him Moab. Remember, we saw from father, from Av. That's what it means, from Av. And the second one had Ben Ami, son of my people. Or you could say, my people's son would work as well. Well, who's her people? Her father's her people. My people's son. Now we're going to begin, sorry, that was kind of long, almost 30 minutes. We're going to begin our portion for today. It said, and Abram journeyed from there. From there? Where's there? Okay, there was back in Hebron, is where the angels came to him. Remember, we were talking about the tree at Mamre, the big oak. At Mamre, remember that big oak? That oak's been there since the days of Adam. Survived the flood. You know that big oak. Oh yeah, I know the one you're talking about. That's how they recognize places. journeyed from there. Okay? He's been in Hebron since he was 78 years old. He moved to Hebron, made that his home base. It said he was there for a long time. Made it his home base when he was 78, right after he defeated the armies that came down from the north, Chedorlaomer, Nimrod, Arioch, and Tidal, king of nations. Why would you leave a place that you've been in for 22 years like that? And Abram journeyed from there to the south and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur. Kadesh and Shur, and stayed in Gerar. You know, you always got to look at the map to find out what's going on. Let's go to our map. I set it out for you already. Here's Kadesh Barnea. Here is the wilderness of Shur, and the way of Shur that goes down to Egypt. But it's talking about staying between Kadesh Barnea and Shur. And then it says it's in Gerar. Well, here's Gerar up here. They do have a question mark by Gerar. Abraham, came from here. Where my cursor's at, or my hand's at, if you are watching it in my conference room, it's going to be a cursor. Right here is Hebron, Mamre. It's on top of each other. If we go closer, that separates. But he's moving south. Okay, maybe Gerar isn't here. Maybe it is more between where they're saying Kadesh Barnea and the deserts. Maybe it's more in Be'er Lahai Roi, or Roi. Maybe it's more in that area. We don't know. But he's moving south. But look what it says. Now Abram said to Sarah, his woman. Remember, there is no word for wife in Torah. It's always woman. If it's his woman, you can think of it as a wife. But that's not always the case. Sometimes his woman could be his servant as well. Sometimes his woman could be his daughter, I suppose. But we've got to think bigger. Don't let the word wife limit your understandings. It will limit your understandings if you're not careful. I found something I thought was interesting this week. It says, now Abram said of Sarah, his wife, okay, she is my sister. And it says Abimelech, king of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. Wow, things are really moving fast in Genesis chapter 20. He leaves. Doesn't tell us why he left, did it? Why would you go to another kingdom? Is it perhaps possible that you are fleeing from the after effects? From the after effects of what happened in Sodom? I think that's the case. Do you think that when Abram comes to this king of Gerar, his name is Abimelech? That's what I always thought about Abimelech, until I just realized Avimelech is how you would say it. And when I said to myself, Avimelech, I realized this is my father, the king. Avi is my father. Or it could be my father's king. Father's king. Not my father's king, father's king. I think my father's king, or my father, the king, is what we're talking about. Abraham was afraid of this man. He has power. He's the king of Gerar. And look what it says. Abram, son of Sarah, his woman, she's my sister. Why would he say that? Remember what's going on right now. Oh my gosh! There's supposed to be a child born to Abraham between the destruction of Sodom, which happened on the Moed, the time of life, and the following Moed. But now, this woman who's supposed to bear the promised child is going to Avimelech to become his woman. Oh my God! May it never be! Satan would love to have Sarah impregnated by Avimelech, the king of Gerar. And Abraham, I think because of fear, not really understanding who he is in light of the word of Yehovah given to him, first in a vision, really all his life Yehovah has spoken to him, but also by his messengers. Abraham can't be killed until he bears a son. So if he just kept that in mind, he'd realize he doesn't have to fear these people. He took Sarah. But I like what it says. Oh, well, let me just look at my note here. I think the former is correct. Okay, yeah, I think that Avimelech, my father, the king, is more correct way of understanding what Avimelech means. We want to call him Abimelech. I won't do that again anymore because I understand now. Ab is father. The yod in it says my, or shows possession. In this case, I think it's my father, the king. I put the in grade italicized to let you know that I'm adding that. My father king is actually what it says. But I think understanding it as my father the king, to put it into something more English that we would understand, is an okay way to do that. Well, again, I kind of went back and just to kind of have us be able to understand the seriousness. He says here on the right, we've got my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at the set time next year. Okay, we've got to understand this chapter in that context. Because if this man takes Sarah, the deal's off. Yehovah's word is for naught. Because what Yehovah says, Yehovah's got to do. And if he doesn't do it, Yehovah loses credibility, doesn't he? He's got to make it work. So I think it's so cool. The very next verse, they put but. Okay, it says and, it's a vav. But I think understanding it as a but is really kind of a cool thing. It says, but God, but Elohim. Okay, here's a man taking the daughter, but Elohim. Says, no, that ain't going to happen. That's what he's saying, isn't it? What happens? But Elohim came to Abimelech in a dream by night. Yeah, remember, that's what happens. He speaks to men, wicked men, not men of Elohim. He speaks to the Gentiles in dreams. It happens all the time. And it's happening right now with Avimelech. Came to a dream, said, indeed thou art a dead man. Oh man, because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. Oh, there's so much to see here. Look at how the verse really should be. For she is ba'aled by a Baal. They say a man's wife. Okay? No woman, doesn't say woman. It says Baal, Baaled. One is a verb, one is a noun. She is Baaled by a Baal. She is mastered by a master. Remember, I always like to use the master rather than Lord. Carissa was talking about, well, if you do it with an English accent, my lord, my lord, it sounds okay. Well, you know, that they understood in those days that men followed men, and women followed their men's master and their men. Women called their men my lord. Women called their men's lords my lord. You follow what I'm saying? What is he saying? He's saying Sarah is mastered by another master. That's what Yehovah is telling Avimelech. This woman is mastered by another master. You can't take her. It's going to get you in trouble. Yehovah is always going to perform his word. But he is faithful like his name. What he has said will come to pass. And he made it so. Here's the very first time that I realized that what Yehovah says he's going to do. And that really, it's more what his name means. Remember, we swear in Yehovah's name. Why? Because we cannot. This is what the third commandment is about. Don't take the word or the name of Yehovah in vain. If you swear by his name, you got to do what you say you're going to do. That's what his name means. Look what he says. This is where I first saw it. Ezekiel 37:14. Then you shall know that I, Yehovah, have spoken it and performed it, says Yehovah. I call it a Yehovah sandwich. Double-sided. Got his name before it and his name after it. You know it's going to happen. If he says it, it's going to be done. He will swallow up death forever. And my master, Yehovah, will wipe away tears from all faces. The rebuke of his people he will take away from all the earth. For Yehovah has spoken. Here's another one, Numbers 23. God is not a man. Elohim is not a man that he should lie, nor a son of man, son of Adam, that he should repent. Has he said, and he will not do? Or has he spoken, and he will not make it good? For he spoke, and it was done. He commanded, and it stood still. I think that was even his Shalach saying that. I think they're referring to what Joshua did when the sun and the moon stopped. I'd have to look at that one. But the point I want to make is Yehovah is going to make his word come to pass. It may look bad. The king's got my woman. I let it happen. I'm sure Abraham's going, what a dumb jerk am I. He's got to be doing that. He's got to understand that the potential for destruction of what Yehovah has been saying for the last 50 years, that he's going to have a child, has the potential to be destroyed right now when he's supposed to be conceiving the child. Oh, wowzers. All right, verse 4. But Abimelech had not come near her. And he said, Adonai. Listen, here's the king of Gerar calling Yehovah Adonai. And look what he says. Oh my gosh. He says, will thou slay a righteous people? Remember, Goy was people. Don't make it nation. People. Will thou slay a righteous, a Zadik people also? You know what I think? I think he's been talking to Abraham. And Abraham told him the story about him talking to the Shalach and saying to what he said to him about slaying a righteous people. For those of you who are listening online, my friend Carrie sits next to me most of these things. And so if I'm looking to the left here, it's because I've got Carrie that I'm talking with as well. Abraham may have told him that very story. And so now he is going to play the righteous card, the righteous people card. But what about Avimelech, the king of Gerar, and his people? We'd be talking about men people, not lady people, are righteous. Kind of a weak argument, isn't it? But he had heard about Sodom and Gomorrah's destruction and Abram's plea to Yehovah. How is his people righteous? Well, they have a form of their own righteousness, don't they? What does he say? I didn't know. He says it right here. Did he not say to me, she is my sister? And even she herself said, he is my brother, in the integrity of my heart, and the innocence of my hands. I have done this. Okay, I didn't know. They lied to me. The innocence of my heart, the integrity of my heart. Heart. What's the heart? He's got talking about the innocence of his hands. The heart is going to control the hands. Remember, in my Loving Yehovah 101, we saw loving Yehovah with all our lavav, heart, all our nefesh, soul, which was the thoughts and the emotions, and with all our me'od, which was the actions done in accordance with Yehovah's statutes, judgments, and ordinances. If it's not done in accordance with his statutes, judgments, and ordinances, it's not me'od. Well, it's not righteous me'od anyway. It could be wicked me'od, wicked actions. But if we're loving Yehovah with our hearts, remember, he's the one that searches the hearts. I want to go to, we're on 5 right now. I want to go to Jeremiah 17, because I think this is important for us to see this. Come on, Jeremiah, where are you at? Jeremiah 17. I think it's about verse 11 or so. 9. Here it is. It says, the heart is deceitful above all things, desperately wicked. Who can know it? Okay, the heart is something that only Yehovah knows. You know what? My ex thought she knew my heart, but she did not know my heart. She should have obeyed me and followed me, and she would have been a blessed woman right now. But you know what? I wouldn't be talking to you had I stayed married to that woman, ba'aled to that woman. Yehovah separated the righteous from the wicked in delivering me from that woman. Yeah. The heart is deceitful above all things, desperately wicked. Who can know it? I, Yehovah, search the heart. I test the mind. Search the heart, test the mind, even to give every, look what it says, every woman? No, it says every ish, according to his ways, according to the fruit of his actions. It's always about what a man does. Not what he thinks, contrary to your New Testament beliefs. It's what a man does that is sin. So I told you that story to tell you this story. A righteous nation. Has he done anything to Sarah? Has he even touched Sarah? Okay, he hasn't. But Yehovah is going to make sure it doesn't happen. Look what he says. Did he not say to me, she is my sister? And she herself said, he's my brother. For in the integrity of my heart and the innocence of my hands, I have done this. Okay, he really hasn't done anything. He took the woman into his house under false pretenses. He didn't know. And Elohim said to him in a dream, still talking to him in the dream, yes, I know that thou did this in the integrity of thy heart. For I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore I did not let thee touch her. Oh, look what it says. The first time Elohim is, or I guess it's only used once here. It says, and the Elohim. I should probably do this. The Elohim. It's missing there. There's something missing. The Elohim said to him in a dream. Verse 7. Now therefore restore the man's Isha. The man's, look at there. It even has the definite article, the. Ha-ish. Restore the man's woman. For he is a prophet, and he will pray for thee, and thou shalt live. But if thou do not restore her, know that thou shalt surely die, thou and all who are thine. Who's that? Is he talking about the whole city? He's the king of Gerar. Or is he talking about the people of his household? I'm probably more inclined to think the people of his household, but then when I see what happens in Yashur, then I go the other way. You'll have to decide yourself. So Avimelech rose early in the morning, called his servants. Okay, here's a word for the week. The word is aved. It gets put out as abed. Here it is right here. See that abed? Well, they spell it E-B-E-D. Okay, but remember, when we have a bet in the middle of the word, it says v. So it's aved. It's not abib, it's aviv. When bet is at the beginning of the word, then it says ba. But it's the soft sound, va. So this is a word, it means servant. It's always men servants. There are no aved lady servants. Okay, keep that in mind because it will help you understand what's going on if we understand these words. You follow what I'm saying? It's important many times. So Avimelech rose up early in the morning, called his servants. These are men. They're servants, men who are servants, and told all these things in their hearing. And the men, look at this, there's the definite article again, the men, the Enoshim. Okay, that's another clue that we're always talking about men, and there it is, the Aved, his Avedim, it's Avedim actually is what it is. This is a case where before the class. I was just talking with Carissa, and we were talking about how these verbs are conjugated. So here is servants. This would be avadim normally, because we're talking about servants, plural servants, but when we add the vav to make it his servants, we drop the mem, leave the yod. Okay, that's a conjugation that we have to learn. Okay, but because we understand that the yod makes it plural and the vav makes it his servants, we understand now that these are his servants and not his servant. You follow what I'm saying? The yod tells us it's servants. The vav tells us it's his. Okay, and then we have it confirmed when it says the man, the enoshim. Enoshim is the plural of ish, the same way that nashim is the plural form of ish. Okay, just things to kind of keep in mind. Avadim, his servants, comes from aved. They're always men. All right. Word for the week. Aved. Aved. Avadim is the plural. And Avimelech called Abraham and said to him, he's awake now. Well, he was awake in the last verse. Look at it. It says, and told them all the things in their hearing. It doesn't even tell them what they said, but Yasher tells us what they said to him. And Avimelech called Abraham and said to him, what have thou done to us? What'd you do to us? How have I offended thee that thou have brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin, or at least a potential great sin? Thou have done deeds to me that ought not to be done. Well, you know what? Abram's being rebuked. And I think he deserves to be rebuked. He was creating a problem because of the fear he had. We're going to see it right now. Then Abimelech said to Abram, what did thou have in view? What were you thinking? That thou have done this thing? Well, what was he thinking? Well, I was thinking, I was acting out of fear. I think God's word is a paraphrase, not a translation, but they put it well. They said, Avimelech also asked Abram, what were you thinking when you did this? You know, I put, what did he really have to be afraid of? I think afraid is one word, one half. Afraid of. What did he really have to be afraid of? In a sense, he could not be killed until Yehovah at least gave him a seed from his own body. Until Sarah is impregnated by him, because Yehovah's word, or because Yehovah does what he says he's going to do. He's really, in a sense, invulnerable, wouldn't you say? Carrie agrees. Well, verse 11. And Abram said, because I thought, surely the fear of Elohim is not in this place, and they will kill me on account of my woman. Wow. Think about this. This woman, Sarah, how old is she? She's 89 years old right now. She's going to have Isaac after she turns 90. But here's a woman that is so beautiful that the king of, remember, the Pharaoh wanted her when she was 60, 68. And now Avimelech wants her when she's 89. Wow. because I thought, surely the fear of Elohim is not in this place, and they will kill me on account of my woman. That's what he was afraid of, being killed. Fear of Elohim. Do you think, I think the fear of Elohim was in that place. It's been days since Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah, Zeboim, and probably Zoar were destroyed by brimstone, fire and brimstone coming from heaven. For heaven's sakes, yes, I think the fear of Elohim is in this place. But even if it weren't, let me show you some verses. My woman, just so you know. I don't see this very often, my wife, my woman. I don't see that. And I wanted to confirm, is that really my woman? And look, it says Isha with the E, or the Yod after it. My woman. Abraham did not understand the promises of Yehovah. Yehovah promised a son, and Yehovah is not a man that he should lie. Well, look at these verses. Our fear should be in Yehovah, who is able to destroy the body and the soul. Now, I had another verse from Matthew, and I thought, I don't want to use New Testament ideas, New Testament writings, instead of the Word. So I took it out, and I went with these verses instead. For Yehovah spoke thus to me with a strong hand, talking about Isaiah, and instructed me that I should not walk in the way of the people, saying, do not say a conspiracy concerning all that the people call a conspiracy, nor be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. What's he saying? Don't fear the people of the land, man. Becoming Yehovah's Ezra man is becoming his Segula. Do you remember the Segula? We're going to talk about it when we get to Exodus 19. But the Segula is something that Yehovah holds close to himself, something that Yehovah cherishes. You've got to understand, as Yehovah's Segula, he is in control. We don't have to fear the wicked of the earth, because Yehovah promises to keep his Segula close. You follow what I'm saying? And now when you read this in this context, understand, concerning all that the people call a conspiracy, nor be afraid of their threats, nor be troubled. Yehovah of hosts, him you shall hallow. Let him be your fear, and let him be your dread. Who's he talking to, ladies or men? Men, 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 men. Yes. Specifically, Isaiah right now. He says, listen to me, you who know righteousness. Who knows righteousness? Men know righteousness. You people in whose heart, Levav, is in my law, my Torah. Do not fear the reproach of men. You know what? I bet you that's Adam. I don't want to take time to look at it right now. Nor be afraid of their insults. For the moth will eat them up like garments, and the worm will eat them like wool. But my righteousness will be forever, and my salvation from generation to generation. Here's another one. Even I am he who comforts you. Who are you that you should be afraid of a man who will die? And the son of Adam, Adam's seed. Remember, that's the new kind created after the fall. Yahovah never intended that man to be created. But because of the fall, a new kind was created. Ha-Adam's seed. He says, and Ha-Adam's seed who will be made like grass. They're nothing in the context of eternity. Our job is to understand who Yahovah is and that what he will and what he will do for his sons, his seed, those born in the land as Ra, the born in the land as Ra who fear only him. When the 144,000-ish, remember I don't like to use that number without using an ish after, because we're talking about servants. The number comes from the New Testament. Let's not base our theology, the 144,000. It's a New Testament number. You don't find that number in the Law and the Prophets. We talk about servants. We talk about the branch. We talk about lots of things to talk about who these male child are. But that number's not there. So I like to use 144,000-ish. When the 144,000 are sealed and redeemed from the earth, they will know and understand that they cannot be killed. Okay, this is what Abraham should have understood. They will understand it, partially because we can learn from Abraham's mistake in fearing the kings of the earth, in particular, the one they call my father, Avimelech. They will be fearless even while the whole world tries to destroy them and those with them. This is the attitude that we must develop in our minds. Don't be afraid of the people of the land. We are going to make up the mind to serve only Yahovah. But remember, you can't be a fence walker and think that Yahovah is going to come to your aid. You've got to make yourself first a ger, and then make yourself as Ra, his segula. You follow what I'm saying? Guys, you've got to get this. This is so important. Then we can walk in strength. That's why I say this is the attitude that we must develop in our minds and live out in our actions. Yahovah and his word is trustworthy. We can trust Yahovah's word. We can base our life on his word. That is the firm foundation that we can build our life on. We must learn to live only according to it. And Yahovah will never fail to bring his word, his promises to pass. Will we see the last days? Are we in the last days right now? You know what? I don't know. I hope we are. I want to be one of those great men that Yahovah is going to raise up in the last day and use like he used Moses. I want to have a camp. I want to be the Adon of a large gate with people who follow me. We'll see what happens. Verse 12. But indeed, she is truly my sister. This is Abraham talking to Avimelech. He says, but indeed, she truly is my sister. Man, you're making yourself look bad, Abraham. First, you degraded yourself because of your fear and put all this problem into the house. you put your woman in jeopardy and Jehovah's word in jeopardy. And now he's still going at it. But indeed, she truly is my sister. No, she's not. She's the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And she became my Isha, my woman. No, she didn't. I put liar, liar, pants on fire. She is the daughter of his eldest brother. Sarah is his niece. Got it right that time. Did you hear that? You were wondering if I was going to get it right, weren't you? I always want to make her his cousin. She's a niece. She is 10 years younger than he. Look at his is Yasher 12. And at that time, Nahor and Abram took unto themselves women, the daughters of their brother Haran. The wife of Nahor was Milcah, and the name of Abram's woman was Sarai. And Sarai, Abram's woman, was barren. She had no offspring in those days. That's when he's 50. She was 40 years old. She's not going to have a child until she's 90, 50 years later. Yeah, no, he definitely is not giving the truth here. 13. And it came to pass, when Elohim caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said to her, This is your kindness, that this is thy kindness that thou should do for me. In every place where we go, say, he is my brother. Well, there he's finally being honest about what's going on. Okay, and I think it's admirable, truly admirable. Sarah, is a woman of worth. He told her what he wanted her to do, and really, she's doing it to her own hurt, isn't she? She's following his instructions to her own hurt. Most women would say, well, I ain't gonna lie for you and get stuck in his kingdom. Isn't that what most people would say? But see, she's willing to do and be the kind of woman that Yehovah expects her to be. What did he say? Your desire shall be for your man, and he shall rule over you. Okay, she could have said, no, I'm married to him. I'm not going with you, chump. That's what a woman today would say, but not her. Let's go to verse 14. We're almost done with this chapter. Then Avimelech took sheep, oxen. Okay, it says sheep. Another word we got to understand. When we talk about sheep and oxen, we're not talking about sheep. We're talking about zeon, sheep and goats. So he's taking sheep and goats. He's taking flocks is the word that we want to call here. If we want to have an English word, flocks. Flocks would include sheep and goats. Oxen. But look what he says, male and female servants. So now is he saying Zakar, male, and Nekabah, female, Evadim? That's how many people would think that they're equal. But it really says male servants and female servants. I think I put a note on here, even though I didn't have it locked in. Yeah, I did. Here it is, flocks. This word is zeon. Here it is right here, zeon. Zeon means flocks, sheep and goats. Male servants. Here it is. This is the word for today. Abed. Evadim. Va Evadim. And male servants. See, we got to use the mem on it this time because it's not being his servant. And female servants. Okay, there's two words for female servants. One is this word right here. It's probably the one that's closest to the family. We call them shifka. Shifka. This happens to be va shifkat. Shafkat. Shafakat. Shafakat is how they would say this. Shafakat. Shafakat. Because we're talking about plural form of Shifka. So here's a case where, see how Shifka finishes with a, maybe you can't see that very easily, but Shifka finishes with a hey, but here they change the hey to a het and finish it with a tav. That's a conjunction that is treated differently when they change one word to another word, make it plural. You follow what I'm saying? It gave them to Abram, and he restored to him Sarah, his Isha. So there's the Vav says his Isha. Anyway, I'm trying to help you learn some Hebrew at the same time. Many of you have shown some interest in that, so I'm trying to accommodate that a little bit. This should have had a note on it as well. Oh, I guess I put that on the wrong verse, didn't I? Oops. Easily fixed. Okay. And Avimelech said, see, my land is before thee. Dwell where it pleases thee. My land. My land. Here it is. Aretz. Aretz. Yod. Aretz. My land. His land. He's the king. Then to Sarah, listen to what he says. Then to Sarah he said, behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. He says, indeed, this vindicates you. That makes no sense at all. Indeed, this vindicates you. Before all who are with you and before everybody, thus she was rebuked. What does that even mean? That's stupid. Here's what he's saying. Then to Sarah he said, behold, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. First, this is kind of tongue-in-cheek. Because he knows now that he's not her brother. So he's being facetious when he's calling Abram her brother instead of her Baal, her master, or her husband. Baal, that would be the word he would use probably. But look what it says. It says, 1,000 pieces of silver. For it is for thee a cover thy eyes. It is for thee to cover thy eyes. In other words, buy something to cover your eyes so that we know you're not an available woman. This is what he's saying. Who are with you? Cover your eyes before all who are with you. Okay, the people that travel with them. And before everybody. People like me. Thus she was rebuked. I put even Avimelech has a sense of humor. He's referring to Abraham as her brother. Yeah, I think that's really cute. Okay, let's move this up. We'll move it down by moving it up. There it goes. Verse 17. So Abram prayed to the Elohim, and Elohim healed Avimelech, his woman, and his female servants. Well, we should be saying, what's wrong with their servants? It says, for Yehovah had closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's woman. But look what it says. It says, Elohim healed Abimelech. He doesn't have a womb, does he? Well, maybe. But then why does he say Abimelech and then his woman? No, it's talking about Abimelech, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Carrie was suggesting that maybe it says Abimelech because his woman is his flesh. Well, look at his woman. It appears that Abimelech was taking another woman, wasn't he? Was that the sin that he was committing? No, the sin that he was committing was not taking another woman, even though he already had a woman. The sin that he was committing was adultery, taking another Baal's woman. What was wrong with him? What did Jehovah do to him that he needed to be healed of? I think, based on what we're going to read now in Yashar, that Jehovah closed up his issues. Couldn't defecate, couldn't pee, couldn't have sex. That's what I think. And I'll show you why here in a moment. It doesn't really come clear here, but I think we're going to see it more clearly in Yashar. Let's go there now, okay? Oh, let me look at the last word. This business about closed up all the wombs, that's really interesting because the word that they use here is this word right here, atzar. And they use it twice. Atzar, Yehovah, Asar. Double closed. I think that's showing the completeness of this closure. There weren't any babies coming out, but I got a hunch that these women, if they remain double closed, they aren't going to survive but more than a day or two because of the double closure. It's death. Yehovah brought death on of Avimelech and his household, and maybe even his kingdom. We'll have to decide that as we go through this next portion. If something hadn't changed, a lot of people were going to die to preserve Sarai for Abraham. All right, let's go to Yashar. And I'm sorry, I forgot to open that up for us this morning. Usually I have that open already. And we want to go to chapter 20. 20. All right, this is where we're going to begin. And it says, at that time, Abram journeyed from the plain of Mamre. Hebron, that's where he's been. 22 years he's been in Mamre, maybe 21 years. Been there, Hebron, Mamre. And he went to the land of the Philistines, and he dwelt in Gerar. It was in the 25th year of Abram's being in the land of Canaan. Why do they say the 25th year of him being in the land of Canaan? Remember, he went into the land of Canaan when he was 55. They're taking off 15 years that he dwelt in Canaan. They're counting it from 75. That's surprising to me. And he came to Gerar in the land of the Philistines. And when they entered the land, he said to Sarah, his woman, say thou art my sister. So any one that shall ask thee in order that we may escape the evil of the inhabitants of the land. Fear is in Abram's heart still. I think he's still going to outgrow that fear. And as Abraham was dwelling in the land of the Philistines, the servants of Avimelech, king of the Philistines, saw that Sarah was exceedingly beautiful. And they asked Abram concerning her, and he said, she's my sister. Oh, let me slide this over a little bit. There you go. Is that nicer? And the servants of Avimelech went to Avimelech, saying, a man from the land of Canaan is come to dwell in the land, and he has a sister that's a knockout, exceedingly fair. 89-year-old knockout. And Avimelech heard the word of his servants. Who are the servants? Men. Okay, this is why I say you want to understand this, so we're not talking about lady servants. They don't come and talk to him. Who praised Sarah to him. And Avimelech sent his officers, again, we're talking about men, and they brought Sarah to the king. And Sarah came to the house of Avimelech. And the king saw that Sarah was beautiful, and she pleased him exceedingly. Look at Sarah's attitude. Is she going to rat out her husband? Not a woman of worth. Woman of worth won't do that. He can trust the woman of worth. Abraham can. And he approached her and said to her, "What is that man to thee with whom thou didst come into the land?" And Sarah answered him and said, "He's my brother. And we came from the land of Canaan to dwell where we could find a place." Something happened in the land of Canaan where they were at. I think they got driven out of their home because of the poisonous gases. And Avimelech said to Sarah, "Behold, my land is before thee. Place thy brother in any part of the land that pleases thee." Look at here, he's getting his land before he takes her. "And it will be our duty to exalt and elevate him above all the people of the land, since he is thy brother." The people of the land, are we talking about male people or lady people? Male people. And Avimelech sent for Abraham. And Abraham came to Avimelech. And Avimelech said to Abraham, "Behold, I have given orders that thou shalt be honored as thou desirest on account of thy sister, Sarah." And Abraham went forth from the king, and the king's present followed him. What was the present that he got that followed him? I don't know. As at the evening time, before men lie down to rest, the king was sitting upon his throne, and a deep sleep fell upon him, and he lay upon the throne and slept till morning. His wedding night, he fell asleep on his throne, and he dreamed that an angel of Yahovah came to him with a drawn sword in his hand. Now, here's a place where we could take Melech and make it an angel. Perhaps. This is certainly not an Enoshim or an Ish, is it? So I think we can legitimately make this an angel. But is it taking the form of a man? Is it taking the form of, like what happens in Ezekiel, what is it, chapter 40? Talks about angels, seraphim. Doesn't describe anything like a man. You have to take a look at it. 41 of Ezekiel. And he dreamed that the angel of Elohim, Yahovah, came to him with a drawn sword in his hand. And the angel stood over Avimelech and wished to slay him with the sword. And the king was terrified in his dream. Here is Abraham being afraid of Avimelech and Avimelech's kingdom, this wicked people. But here is Avimelech being terrified of Yahovah. See, we limit Yahovah because we don't know Yahovah. We don't know what Yahovah is capable of doing for those men who will follow him wholly. Will you follow him wholly? Learn to follow him wholly. It will change your life. He's terrified. And the king was terrified in his dream, and he said to the angel, "In what have I sinned against thee, that thou comes to slay me by thy sword?" The angel answered and said to Avimelech, behold, thou diest on account of the woman. Thou diest. He's dying. Don't need the sword. You're dying already. Which thou did yesternight bring to thy house, last night brought to thy house. For she is a Baaled woman. There we are, a Baaled woman, a married woman. This is the word we're talking about, I'm sure. I put Baaled with an ed after it. Okay, it doesn't need that. That's English. But I'm trying to help you understand. She's a married woman, a Baaled woman. The woman of Abraham, who came to thy house. Now therefore return that man his woman, for she is his woman. Do you think he's making a point? And should thou not return her, know that thou wilt surely die, thou and all belonging to thee. Who belongs to him? His woman, his sons, his daughters, his male servants, Evadim, female servants, Shifkot, Shifka, whatever it is. I forgot to tell you there was two words for women servants, female servants. One was the Shifka, the other one was the Amma. Remember that word too. The Amma is probably a lesser servant. She is available, work age, but she works outside the house. The Shifka seems to be the one that's closer to the family. Let's put it that way. And on that night there was a great outcry in the land of the Philistines. And the inhabitants of the land saw that the figure of the man standing with a drawn sword in his hand. And they smote. Now here's all the inhabitants of the land. This isn't just in his house now. This is all the inhabitants of the land saw a figure of a man stand. Inhabitants of the land. Do you think we're talking about men inhabitants or lady inhabitants? Okay, again, get the correct understanding. It's going to help you. It's going to change the way you view the scriptures. Understand the inhabitants of the land as the men inhabitants. And he smote the figure of a man standing with a drawn sword in his hand, and he smote the inhabitants of the land with a sword. Yea, he continued to smite them. And the angel of Jehovah smote the whole land of the Philistines that night. And there was great confusion on that night in the following morning. And every womb was closed. Every womb was closed. And all their issues. Okay? Every womb was closed and all their issues. Who's there? We would tend to think it's the ladies, wouldn't we? But it's talking about all the wombs are closed and their issues. What does that mean? I think it means that the men's issues, remember we talk about issues when we get to, I think it's Leviticus 15, we'll talk about issues for male, Zakar, and for Nekabah, the ladies. Talk about issues, their issues. Their wombs were closed and all their issues. And the hand of Jehovah was upon them on account of Sarah, Abram's woman, whom Avimelech had taken. And in the morning, Avimelech rose with terror. That's what he said before. He's terrified. And confusion. And with great dread. And he sent and had his servants, his Evadim, called in. And he related his dream to them. And the people were greatly afraid. You hear that? The people are who? His servants. One man, standing amongst the servants of the king, answered the king, saying, O sovereign king, restore this woman to her husband, for he is her Baal. For the like happened to the king of Egypt when this man came to Egypt. He remembers. They know the stories. Abram is famous. He's been around for a long time. And he said concerning his woman, she's my sister. For such is the manner of doing when he comes to dwell in a land in which he is a stranger. And Pharaoh sent and took his woman for his woman. And Jehovah brought upon him grievous plagues until he returned the woman to her man. Now therefore, O sovereign king, know what happened yesternight to the whole land. For there was a great consternation, and a great pain, and lamentation. And we know that it was on account of the woman which thou didst take. It's your fault. You gotta fix it. Now therefore restore this woman to her man, her Baal, lest it should befall us as it did Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and all his subjects, and that we may not die. And Abimelech hastened and called, and had Sarah called for, and she came before him. And he had Abraham called for, and he came before him. And Abimelech said to them, what is this work that you have done, that you have been doing in saying that you are brother and sister? I took this woman for a wife, for a woman. I took this woman. How do you say that? I took this woman. How would they say that? I took this woman as my woman, probably is what they would say. Abraham said, well, this is it. This is the truth right here. And Abraham said, because I thought I should suffer death on account of my woman. And Abimelech took flocks. Look at that. See, now it says flocks. It doesn't say sheep. It says flocks. They translated it better, didn't they? Took flocks and herds. Oh, and they translated that better too. Men servants and maid servants. You see the difference? And 1,000 pieces of silver. And he gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah to him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, behold, the whole land is before thee. Dwell in it wherever thou shalt choose. And Abraham and Sarah, his woman, went forth from the king's presence with honor and respect, because of the fear and trembling that was given to them by Jehovah, and they dwelt in the land, even in Gerar. And all the inhabitants of the land of the Philistines and the king's servants were still in pain. Hear that? The inhabitants of the land and the king's servants, Avadim, were still in pain through the plague which the angel had inflicted upon them the whole night on account of Sarah. Sounds to me like none of the men could have sex with their wives because they were both screwed up physically. That's what it sounds like. And Abimelech sent to Abraham, saying, pray now for thy servants to Jehovah thy Elohim. Look at that. He knows the name of Jehovah, Abram's Elohim. I think this is the first time that he's used that name. And Jehovah heard the prayer of Abraham and healed who? Abimelech, and all his subjects. Well, we're going to stop here. Father, thank you for the things that you've shown us today. We love you so much. We give you all the glory and the honor and the praise. Please use your word. Don't let your word go out without having the effect that it needs to have in our hearts and our minds. We love you so much. Please teach us your ways. Help us to become wholly yours. Thank you, Father. All right. Well, thank you for joining me today, folks. We'll see you again next time. Catch y'all later. Bye now.